Hi there, Smart Drivers. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you today about passing a road test. Any class of license that you are taking a road test for, this live stream will help you to pass that road test. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to go over some of that. Now, just got back from holidays, as it said on the thumbnail there. Had a couple of weeks away in Ontario, and if you saw the video on slow-moving vehicles, that was a video I did while I was away, so got to be there with the Mennonites and the other slow-moving vehicles because it was harvest time there in Ontario. And I just want to check and make sure that everything's working here because the live stream you are live. The internet can totally see you. Yes, encoder, say something. Where's the stream feed? There we go. Swaggin 48 passed the road test today. Awesome. That is great news. I'm really happy to hear that. And congratulations to all of the smart drivers in the last couple of weeks who have passed their road test. Now, a couple of things that we're doing here at Smart Drive Test. I have been headhunted in the last couple of months, actually. I've been working on this to do civil suit cases for people who've been injured in traffic crashes. So that's one of the things that we're doing. So we're doing some consulting work, which is very rewarding and helping to people who unfortunately have been injured in traffic crashes. So that's one of the things that we're doing at Smart Drive Test as well. Obviously working on the YouTube channel and trying to get videos up for you, as many as possible. I'm getting back, now that I'm back on holidays, getting back to doing 2 a week for you. ZP24, have my G2 road test on September 29th, at the end of September. So yes, you have lots of practice, Zed. And you know, for the G2, as you may or may not have heard from driving instructors and other people, that you need to be fairly efficient and fluid in terms of being able to pass that road test. So Natasha, second road test on Thursday, booked from October. Instructor, get that info. Awesome. So lots of road tests coming up for everybody. Good luck on all of the road tests. If you have any questions at all, by all means, leave me a comment down in the comment sections. Leave me a comment here as well. Super Chat is available. Donations are greatly appreciated. It helps to sustain the channel and whatnot, and keeps everything going here as well. Be sure to check out the courses. I'm working hard now that I've gotten back here from holidays to get the Pass Your Road Test First Time Guaranteed course up on the Smart Drive Test channel. Brent, yes, we talked about that, Brent, about your Dodge Ram. Yes, you can use a Dodge Ram for your road test, which is a bigger vehicle, as you know, and I know that's the reason you're asking me about the Dodge Ram. The reason I caution you on the Dodge Ram is because it's a bigger vehicle, and most road tests are going to be taken in a mid-size SUV. So think of it like a Honda Civic or a Toyota Corolla. Most of the road tests are taken in those cars of that size. So when you're doing it in a Dodge Ram, it's going to be a bit bigger, and it's going to be harder to manipulate and move and maneuver in parking lots and in and around, doing curb parking and doing parallel parking and those types of things. It's also going to be more difficult if you're asked to do a 3-point turn, which you may or may not for the purposes of your road test. So just keep all of that in mind when you go to the road test with a bigger vehicle, that you're going to be required to do all of the maneuvers and slow speed, all of the slow speed maneuvers. There's a fly flying around in here, which is driving me crazy. But anyway, all the slow speed maneuvers that most students will be asked to do in a midsize SUV. So just know that, Brad. Okay, my road test on September 22nd, Eileen, in British Columbia. Excellent. Passed my road test on the 5th. Oh, I have to pass my road test. You're going to do it, Kim Joe. Yes, there we go. So lots of road tests coming up. And again, let me know with the road tests. The other thing I'm doing is putting those on the Smart Drive Test website. For all of you that pass a road test successfully, it goes up on the Smart Drive Test website as well. Head over to the Smart Drive Test website. I will leave down in the description there the information, or the link rather, for the checklist for the day that you go for your road test, because make sure you have a look at that and do a pre-trip inspection on your vehicle Make sure you have all of the paperwork. Make sure you have your prescription glasses, all those types of things that you need to do for the purposes of passing your road test on the day of your road test, and that you have everything in place for that on road test day. And again, if you have any questions or you have any suggestions about videos, by all means leave comments for me. I'm always working on those videos and trying to get them up for you as much as possible. The other videos that I'm working on here in the next couple of weeks, I have an interview with one of the tire shops here in town, and I'm going to get you some information on tires, because I learned a few things about tires. I mean, one of the things about teaching is that you're always learning stuff. You're always learning more information about vehicles and trying to pass that information on to you and whatnot. One of the things I learned while I was at home with my brother was that new vehicles manufactured in the mid part of the first decade of the 20th century, all new vehicles manufactured have a tire monitoring system on them, which monitors the air pressure in the tires. So I was interested to learn about that, and that you have to have the tires at a certain pressure or you will set the tire monitoring pressure alarm off and you can't drive the vehicle. So that was one of the pieces of information that I learned about new technology that's coming out on new vehicles. So I'm going to do a video on that and talk about that and give you some more information on that. So Gary at Tireland here in Vernon, British Columbia, is going to do an interview with me, and I'm going to get some information about him. And as well, I'm going to do a winter tire vehicle, so I'll do that as well. So Natasha has a question here: if I rebook a test, will my instructor get the rebook date? No, Natasha, you will need to tell your instructor when that is. So make sure you confirm that information with your instructor, so that he or she knows when your test date is and that you need to book the vehicle for that date. Yeah, so make sure you tell them, okay? There we go. Other questions. So road tests. So one of the other things that's happening on the YouTube channel this week, in the last few days, DPS. Who is DPS, Tattoo? Keep changing the laws. The traffic laws don't change much. They're fairly static in terms of what is expected for the purposes of a road test. So the other thing I was going to say was one of the videos that is taking off here, oddly enough, is the shifting video for shifting a non-synchronous transmission in a large big truck, which I'll just see if I can find the video here for you. As I said, okay, here we go. Yes, there's the video. So this is the video that's taken off. This is the shifting theory of video. This is fairly complicated for new drivers, teaching them how to drive and shift a 9-speed, a 10-speed, 13, 15, and an 18-speed transmission. And this video in the last week or so has gone kind of crazy on the YouTube channel. So I thought maybe I would talk about that video a little bit if any of you were interested in that and getting into a career as a bus or truck driver. Now, a lot of the comments that I get from truck drivers, obviously experienced truck drivers, is that you don't need to use the clutch. And yes, you don't need to use the clutch when you're driving a non-synchronous transmission. If you've got a bit of experience, you don't need to use the clutch to shift a non-synchronous transmission. However, for new drivers, it is much easier to learn how to drive a non-synchronous transmission when you're double clutching, because the transmission tends to be less forgiving. As well, for those drivers who are moving around between different vehicles all the time, it's what's called, in the industry, it's called slip seating. If you're moving around between different trucks in the industry, it's also easier if you know how to double clutch, because the transmission will be less forgiving, because each vehicle has its idiosyncrasies, and the transmission will be more forgiving rather if you're using the clutch. So that's the reason that I advocate using the clutch for new drivers learning how to drive truck or bus if it has a non-synchronous transmission. And yes, many new trucks, especially in Europe, have automatic transmissions, or they have synchronous transmissions, which is similar to what you would have in a car with a 5-speed transmission. So know that if you're going for a higher class license and you're going to be working towards shifting a non-synchronous transmission. So that'll give you some information about that. All right, so just to answer a couple comments here. Okay, Natasha, if he hasn't messaged you back on Facebook, then definitely try and get on the phone and ring them and make sure you get confirmation that he or she knows when your road test date is and that you can go with them, okay? So know that as well. Excuse me. Jeff, is it okay to take my hands off the steering wheel for a split second while turning? It helps when turning a lot. Or is it better to just keep my hands on the steering wheel? Jeff, you need to keep your hands on the steering wheel for the entire duration of the road test. You can't take your hands off the wheel. Your hands must be in contact with the wheel at all times. One of the things that you can do is keep your palms in contact with the steering wheel and simply open your fingers and your palms are in contact with the steering wheel. As long as you do that, you're going to be fine for the purposes of a road test, so know that. Hafsa Garan, how do I hill start? Hafsa, are you talking about a manual car or are you talking about a commercial vehicle with a non-synchronous transmission? Just let me know that and I'll answer that question for you. Fayez, failed my G1. Yes, unfortunately, Fayez, as soon as the examiner intervenes, it's an automatic fail. Whether it's right or wrong, unfortunately, you know, if they intervene, it's an automatic fail. So there isn't anything you can do. You're going to have to retake the test. And you can't challenge that either. It's pretty tough to get an examiner, a driving examiner, to overturn their decision. Okay, Tattoo, Department of Public Safety. Where are you in the world that it's the Department of Public Safety that's responsible for licensing? Align, I failed because I missed to check a blind spot when I turned right. The speed too. I was thinking I passed, but the instructor told me I failed. I was mad. Yeah, it's unfortunately it's not very pleasant when you're unsuccessful on a road test. You didn't fail. You just were unsuccessful in the attempt. And you know, there's a lot of videos here on the channel. Specifically, look at the How to Pass a Road Test Smart playlist. Look at that playlist. That will give you the specific information that you need, the specific techniques that you need to do for the purposes of passing a road test. For example, observation. You need to shoulder check. You must shoulder check twice for every turn or lateral movement, and that's minimum in terms of shoulder checking. If the situation at the intersection changes for any length of time, if you're there for 15 or 20 seconds, you need to shoulder check again before you move the vehicle, just to ensure that there aren't any vehicles in your blind spots. Other things that you need for the purposes of a road test: don't drive over painted islands. That's a no-no on a road test as well. You must stop back from traffic in front of you so that you can see the tires making clear contact with the pavement. That's space management. And as I said before, I'll just back up here a little bit. I got a little bit ahead of myself. There's 4 basic components for a road test: space management, speed management, observation, and communication. Excuse me, I thought I had a glass of water there and I was getting a bit dry. Apologies. So those are the 4 basic components of any road test, regardless of class, whether it's a car, it's a bus, it's a truck, whatnot. So know that. So you need to, space management, don't get near anything else. Speed management, you have to do the posted speed limit, flow of traffic, or what is the capability of the vehicle. So know that. So if you're driving a higher class vehicle, however fast that vehicle will go is how fast you can drive. So that's the speed management. And then space management is simply don't get near anything else. Observation and communication: observe, so you have to have your scanning pattern in place, and as well you have to shoulder check, and shoulder check twice for every turn or lateral movement. As well, observation, communication. You have to communicate with other traffic. So I was just trying to remember communication. So communicate with other traffic. Lights, signals, horn. You're going to use the horn sparingly unless you're in danger or whatnot. Then you'll use the horn. Hand gestures, appropriate hand gestures for the purposes of a road test. Don't tell another driver he or she is number 1. It doesn't go over well on a road test. And then finally, the position of your vehicle on the roadway. So for example, if your vehicle is in the left turning lane, it's most likely that you're going to be turning left. So that's communication, or communicating with other road test. Okay, so South Texas Tattoo. Okay, so give me an example, Tattoo, of one of the laws that you think they're changing in South Texas on you that's making it difficult for you to pass your road test, and we'll see if we can help you out here. Okay, I had a comment here from, Manuel Hill, how will they ask it on a road test? So Hafsa, in terms of hill parking, are you hill parking in Europe? Are you hill parking in North America? Because it's different depending on which country you're in. So I'll give you different information depending on where you're located in the world. Okay, Kemjo, typical errors for an automatic fail in your road test. I don't like to sort of dwell on this because I really want you to think about the things that you're going to be able to do right. Okay, so oftentimes when an examiner tells you that you failed a road test, you don't fail a road test simply because you did one thing wrong. Usually what happens over the course of a road test is you do a number of things wrong that indicate that your driving is not up to a certain level. So for example, you're going to go along and it's kind of like being in court. The burden of proof is on you and the examiner is going to give you a pass until you demonstrate to that examiner that you cannot pass and you shouldn't pass. Some of the automatic fails are obviously driving over the curb, not keeping it between the lines on the roadway. Parallel park, here's another one that a lot of students tell me about, that they failed the road test because they hit the curb. Yes, you're going to fail your road test on a parallel park if you do in fact hit the curb. If you bump or nudge the curb, you're not going to fail, because if you bump or nudge the curb and then move forward and readjust the vehicle and back in, that indicates that you have a high awareness about where the vehicle is in space and place. And if you have a high awareness about where the vehicle is in space and place, the examiner knows that you are a competent driver and it's not likely that you're going to fail for just bumping the curb. If you bang the curb or you drive over the curb, then in fact, yes, you will unfortunately not be successful on your road test. Some of the other things, dangerous actions. If you cut somebody off, if you drive through a red light, you fail to stop completely at a stop sign. Those are some of the automatic things. Anything that's a dangerous action on a road test, and as I said earlier, we were answering a previous question, if the examiner intervenes in the road test and has to apply the brake, then you're not going to be successful on your road test. So there, I just put the comments up there so other people can see the comments too as they're coming through. So that's some of the information for an automatic fail on a road test. Okay, Sammy 15. Any tips for changing lanes in rush hour? One of the keys to changing lanes successfully during rush hour is to ensure that you have your signal on, because as I say to students, signals are to indicate to other traffic that you wish to move over, not that you are in fact moving over. So make sure you have your signal on, and eventually one of the other drivers will help you to move over, because it doesn't take any time out of your day to be nice to other people, and eventually if you ask other drivers to let you move into a space or help you to create a space, they will in fact move over and help you to merge. So that's one of the keys to doing that. The other thing is to kind of move to the left of the lane a little bit. That way you're kind of nudging your way in as well, and the other drivers behind you are kind of get the idea that yes, in fact, you are trying to move over, and they will eventually help you up. Okay, Sundus, backing up my heart is very hard. Okay, look at the video on fundamentals of driving. That will give you information that will help you to learn how to drive and control the primary controls of the vehicle, which is the steering wheel, the throttle, and the brake, and will help you to be a better driver by backing up. Because if you can get better at backing up, it's going to improve your overall driving and accelerate your learning in terms of learning how to drive a car. Hafsa, do I have any videos explaining functions of every button in the car? Yes, I do. Look at the video on secondary controls, and that explains all of the secondary controls, the signals, the lights, the blinkers, the radio, the mirrors, all of those types of things, how to adjust the seats and whatnot. So have a look at that. And again, I'll leave a comment after we get finished the video here and I go in and do the post-production on the video, and I will put that video down there for you. Okay, Natasha, will you have the same examiner? No, it's unlikely that you will have the same examiner on a subsequent test. Usually they will change you around to a different examiner on another road test, so that's going to change for you. Fayez, I have practiced the RPM exercises, but it's still difficult to maintain speed uphill bridge without the bridge speed. Okay, need to be extra careful downslope. Yeah, and yeah, tips, work on your standing pattern. And just what I would suggest, Fayez, is here's another exercise that you could do, is go out to a road somewhere sort of outside of the city that doesn't have a great deal of traffic, and then just practice trying to maintain a constant speed on the throttle. So if you pick 40 or 50 kilometers an hour, or say 20 or 30 miles an hour, just try and hold that and practice that for short stretches, and that will help you as well. The other thing that will help you to maintain a constant speed with your vehicle is to implement your scanning pattern, and every 8 to 10 seconds you should be looking through your scanning pattern. So looking far down the road, in at your instrument panel, down at the end of the hood, down at your instrument panel, out far again, check your center mirror, down at the instrument panel, out far again, and then check your wing mirror. So implement that scanning pattern. It doesn't have to be that exact scanning pattern, but make sure that you look at that scanning pattern, and that way the scanning pattern will help you to monitor the speedometer, and that way you can make adjustments with the throttle and the brake to help you to maintain a constant speed. So that's another exercise that you can do. R3, I passed my CDL on first try, did not do a pre-trip brake test, but I did walk around inspection. Oh, R3, where are you that you did not have to do a pre-trip inspection? I tell you, in Canada here, the pre-trip inspection is insanely detailed, and I mean, goes without saying, there's no way that you're ever going to do a CDL. Oh, so you're doing a CDL. Obviously, you're doing it in the state somewhere. What state were you in that you didn't have to do a pre-trip? Because that's did not do a pre-trip. Did you have your air brakes before R3 in terms of that? Okay. Okay. Yared, I got my CDL license 3 weeks ago, so now I'm out on the road with a trainer for 5 weeks. Okay, but I've already completed 3 weeks and I have 2 weeks, so my trainer is not helping me much. Thanks. Okay, Yared, which company are you with that you're with a trainer? Just leave a comment down there. I'd be interested to hear that and maybe a bit more information about that. All right, let's see, who else? R3, you're in New York. Well, oh, you did have your air brakes before, and that's why you didn't have to do the air brake component of the CDL license. Okay, well, that's interesting, because usually New York is usually a bit different. There's quite a few differences with New York State in terms of their traffic laws, and it's interesting what was said about the Department of Public Works there in South Texas. New York is very different in terms of their traffic regulations and traffic laws. Not a great deal different, but they're slightly different in terms of the fact I did a video on freeways and exits, and that usually the mile markers and exit numbers are one and the same thing in most states in the US. Well, they're not in New York State. As well, in terms of clearance signs, it's 13 feet 6 inches, which is the maximum height of a large vehicle. For those of you going on to drive RVs and pull trailers and those types of things, you need to know that the maximum height of your large vehicle can only be 13 feet 6 inches. In most states and provinces in North America, measure from the ground to the top of the vehicle. In New York State, they measure from the center of the hub, so most of their signs, or a lot of their signs in New York State, can say 12.6, and you can still go under the underpass or bridge, which kind of freaks you out a little bit. I did another video on school buses, and that on a divided highway in most states and provinces, you don't have to stop for a school bus with flashing lights if the highway is divided by a concrete barrier or median or some other berm or whatnot. But no, in New York State, you have to stop for a school bus regardless, which is kind of crazy, because on one of the sources that I looked at, it said that a lot of people don't stop for school buses in New York. Well, if you're on a divided highway, you're not going to stop for a school bus, because you're going to risk, you're at a very high risk of being rear-ended. And then I just recently learned that the other thing about New York State is if you're taking a road test in the city of New York, you can't turn right on a red light unless there's a sign permitting turning right on a red light. So there's quite a few differences I've learned in terms of traffic laws in the state of New York, in the Empire State. So just know that if you're taking a road test or a CDL in the state of New York. So as well, somebody said I need to do more live videos. I caught the question. I'm sorry I didn't see who it was who did it. It was just kind of trying to do everything here at the same time. Yes, every Sunday now I'm going to do a live feed. So this is just kind of a live feed that I'm doing today to just kind of catch up from getting back from holidays. But I am going to do Smart Sundays every Sunday, which will help drivers who are working towards taking their license or CDL license. And that way I can answer any questions that they may have coming into the road test for that week. So I am going to do a live feed, a live stream every Sunday, and do that. So I'm on top of that. Thank you for that comment and encouraging me to do that. And we'll get rid of the fly too. Just driving me crazy and buzzing around in here. So, okay. Venture Logistics. Okay, Indianapolis. Well, that's good to hear that Venture Logistics. I'll have a little bit of a look at that, Uraid. I'm sorry to hear that you feel you're not really learning anything. Is the trainer allowing you to do the paperwork and the route planning and those types of things for your CDL training? Because all of that stuff is incredibly important in terms of becoming a CDL driver. Laser Games, and watching your videos all summer. Thanks. Yes, you are most welcome, my friend. Most welcome. Pape, assuming traffic is going 10 miles per hour faster than you are, even though you were going the speed limit, is it appropriate to slightly increase your speed? Pape, do you have your license already, or are you going for a road test? That will allow me to answer that question. Bush TV, yes, you can turn right on a red light. Definitely have a look at the DMV, Pennsylvania, on turning on red lights, but I'm pretty sure there isn't any restrictions on that, that you can, in fact, yes, turn right on a red light so long as there aren't any signs prohibiting it. The New York DMV manual in New York City is the only one that I've seen thus far that prohibits right turns on a red light. Okay. Okay, Fayez, manual speedometer. Manual, Fayez, you have to stay within the speed limit, so, but you can kind of go over or down a little bit so long as you are always adjusting your speed. So it's probably better, I would suggest, I wouldn't worry too much about the speedometer, whether it's a digital speedometer or whether it's got a needle on it. Either or, it's going to work fine for you. Oh, okay, Pape. You need to keep the speed limit. Don't drive with the traffic flow. Drive the posted speed limit for the purposes of your road test. Okay, after you get your license, then you can go with the traffic flow. But for the purposes of your road test, drive the posted speed limit. Posted speed limit or the flow of traffic, whichever is less. Okay, Trucker P. There's a video game that'll teach you how to drive truck. Maybe that's why the shifting theory video has been so popular lately. Maybe that's just one of the reasons I think people are coming on for the video game as well. Bush, do you have any tips for knowing when it is safe to turn without being clearly cautious? And do you have any tips to avoid going over the line on a stop sign? Yes, Bush. If you're at that point in your driving, I would suggest you look at the driving fundamentals video and work with the primary controls in a parking lot. That will help you with that exercise of getting the vehicle stopped before the cross line. Essentially, when you come up to the stop line at the intersection, the fly's still here. You see the stop line in front of the vehicle, and you just let it roll out of sight under the front of the vehicle, and that's when you're stopped correctly. You're about 2 feet back from the stop line, and that's where you need to stop. And as well, Bush TV, have a look at the judging gap video. Essentially what you got to do is you got to count time and judge the gap between you and other vehicles. And there's a video here as well, so have a look at that. Okay, Gavin, how to parallel park, front park, and back park. Have a look at the playlist on how to parallel park. That will give you the information for that as well. There's another video on how to stall park, and that will give you information about that. Trucker B, when parking a truck, how do you prefer to parallel park? I find that when I parallel park a large truck, the only time that, well, it has been a necessity in several instances, and usually when you end up parallel parking a rig, you're in a rest area and you're out on the exit ramp, and usually you want to get into that parking space because the other trucks have left and there's no place else to park, so you got to parallel park. And usually you just pull up beside the other trucks and then back up, and you need to get the trailer in, and you're going to be backing in on the blind side for a short distance, but essentially you kind of get a feel of it after a bit of practice. And what I would suggest is that you practice in a truck parking lot somewhere where you got lots of space initially with just some big cones, and that way you're not going to risk pushing the trailer off the ditch or whatnot. So that's one of the ways that you can do it. It's very much like parking a car, but of course you've got a trailer and you're going to have to be backing it with the trailer. Oh, R3, you're going to Schneider. Schneider has an excellent training program. I've heard nothing but good things about it, and you know, they are the company that really does a lot of work for new drivers, and they hire a lot of new drivers. So their policies and procedures and their training courses that they have in place are exceptionally good. So if you're going to go to work for Schneider, you're going to get some more information about that, and obviously they're going to teach you how to drive a 6-speed transmission as well, so that's going to give you lots of information about that. Laser Games, Ontario, do I have to make a date so I can go to a driving school? Yes, you're going to have to call the driving school and make time with them to set up some driving lessons with them, or a mock road test, whichever one of those things you want to do when you're driving. My dad should be here. The whole time I was home on holidays, my dad was walking around with a fly swatter killing the flies in the house, and he could be killing the fly that's buzzing around in here. Laser Games. No, you have to use the car that the driving schools have, because unfortunately, you know, cars are expensive. And they're not going to buy different kinds of cars. They might have a different car that you could potentially use or choose. That is one option, but for the most part, you're going to use the car that they have. And most of these driving schools are going to have mid-size sedans. It's going to be like a Honda Civic or a Toyota Corolla or something like that. They're not going to have a huge vehicle that you're going to have to drive around. So that's one of the things that you're going to, excuse me, you're going to do in a driving school. Gavin, can you drive with a G2 license? Can you drive on highways? Yes, you can drive on highways with a G2 license. There's no restrictions. There's only restrictions with your G1, which is you can't drive on 400 highways unless you're with a driving instructor. So that's Ontario. Yared, yes, I'm doing all the paperwork. Sometimes when I have questions, he's not answering me the proper way, but yelling and being incredibly rude, which, yeah. I'm terribly sorry about that, Yared. I'm disappointed to hear about that, because teaching people how to do things, unfortunately, not everybody's a trainer. And when it comes to truck drivers who are trainers and truck drivers who are driving instructors, unfortunately, a good percentage of them really epitomize that saying that those who can't teach. And you know, if he or she is yelling at you, that is really unprofessional and uncalled for, and I do apologize about that, because it's not cool. I might suggest that if it's problematic and they're yelling at you quite a bit and not answering your questions, that you might maybe talk to your supervisor. You know, just quietly say, listen, you know, this is tough, and this is what's going on, and I feel like I'm not learning as much as I could be learning. So Trucker B, what company have you heard that has the best benefits and pay? Well, that depends. Trucker B, where are you in the world? Because are you in Canada or North America, or in the United States? Just let me know where you are, and maybe I can answer that question a little bit better. It depends a lot, because the problem is I just can't give you that kind of information. There are so many trucking companies out there, and just to give you some information of how many trucking companies there are, in the early 1990s, Schneider National, which is one of the biggest trucking companies in the United States, they drive the orange trucks that look like pumpkins. Okay, so you're in North America. Schneider National had 15,000 tractors and 50,000 trailers. And that was in the early 1990s. That was almost 30 years ago. So think about how big they are now. So 15,000 tractors and 50,000 trailers in the early 1990s. Schneider National only comprised 2% of the trucking industry in North America. So that gives you some information about how big the trucking industry is. And it really comes down to doing a bit of research on the companies. And I really would encourage you, if you're going to apply for different trucking companies, that you do some research, go out, maybe even if you can get a hold of a few of the drivers, to go in and talk to the drivers and see what kind of miles they're getting, what kind of pay they're getting, what kind of equipment they're driving. Are they getting good support from their dispatch and those types of things? Those are all the kinds of questions that you want to be asking before you start applying for a job as a truck driver. Now, just let me know, Trucker B, what kind of work are you looking to do? Are you looking to do long haul? Are you looking to do regional? Are you looking to do local truck driving work? Because I might be able to give you a few more questions that you might ask in terms of doing research and looking for a position. All right, who else? So what's the difference between G2 and G license? Kevin, G2 is your probationary license. It's a novice license. So essentially you have a few restrictions in terms of the G2. No hands-free cell phones. You can't talk on your cell phone. Zero blood alcohol. You can't have any alcohol in your system. There are bigger fines if you get a speeding ticket or whatnot. You'll probably lose your license after two or couple of tickets. Whereas with a G license, it's more lenient. You have to have 15 demerit points in Ontario before they actually take your license away from you. You're allowed 0.5 alcohol. You can talk on a hands-free cell phone. So those are some of the difference between a G2 and a G. But a lot of people who get a G2 license, they just hang on to that G2 license for a long time, and just they don't get a speeding tickets and they don't talk on their cell phone while they're driving anyway, so it doesn't really matter to them. So those are the two differences between a G2 license and a G license. So that's one of the things you can look at. Okay. Laser G, what do I do for a G1 and what to expect? Okay, so for your G1 license, there are basic, again, it comes back to what I was talking to before about the 4 basic components of any road test. So it's speed management, space management, communication, observation. You have to have those 4 components in place. You have to have good and efficient ability to handle the primary controls of the vehicle and pilot the vehicle through traffic, and all of the small little details that you need in terms of a road test, not driving over painted islands, staying back so you can see the tires clearly on the pavement in front of you, maintaining space and speed, so not speeding or driving the flow of traffic, whichever is less. So those are the types of basic, you need to have a basic competency of handling the vehicle in traffic and changing traffic situations for the purposes of passing your G1 there, Laser. Okay, so long haul. As of 100 to 500 miles. Okay, so that's not long haul, Trucker B. Trucker B is you're running 2,500, 3,000 miles a week, and basically the company can send you anywhere that they want. What you're talking about is you're talking about regional work, where you might be gone for a day, overnight, or maybe 2 days. You sleep in the truck. That's 100 to 500 miles. And you're going to be looking for more vocational work. So you're going to be looking for things like hauling logs, so working in the timber industry. You're going to be looking for hauling fuel. You're going to be doing flat deck work, those types of things. So in terms of regional work, it's going to be a little bit more different, because I'm getting the sense here that you're on my channel, so therefore you're not an experienced driver. You're going to be up against the experienced drivers, because a lot of guys who are going into the trucking industry to get experience go out and do long haul work first, and then they come back and start working their way into regional and local work. Excuse me. So you're going to have to do a bit more work. I'm not saying that you're not going to be able to get regional work, but you're going to have to work a little bit harder to get that and be a bit more tenacious. So just know that in terms of regional work. Trucker B, people say that Schneider National aren't very good being able to go home. That's why I'm asking. Oh, okay. Yeah, it doesn't matter which company you go for that's long haul. You're going to have some trouble getting home. There's no company, as far as I know, and haven't heard of any company that does long haul work that's going to get you home every weekend. They're just not. The industry, unfortunately, has not changed in 20 years that I've been in the industry, or a quarter of a century that I've been in the industry. Long haul is tough. It just, the load has to be there yesterday, but the load's not available for 2 days, and you end up sitting and waiting somewhere. So it's a problem of Schneider National. It's a problem of JB Hunt. It's a problem of Pacific Coast Express here in British Columbia. It's a problem of everybody. And when I went back trucking a couple years ago in terms of long haul, it's just part and parcel of the job. But in terms of people who are doing it well, I think Schneider National is one of those companies that's doing it much better. Okay, Trucker B, if you have your own truck and you're running as a broker, you're going to be able to work fairly easily. Big Money Boss, the holidays were great. I didn't get a lot of work done on the YouTube channel, but I came back and the video I was showing earlier, the shifting theory video, has just taken off and the channel is on fire. So I'm just trying to get some work here, get done some work here and get caught up. As well, I was saying I was doing some consulting work and writing a report for a lawyer doing a civil case that I'm working on. So I'm trying to get that done as well and get some videos done and get caught up just all around in general here. Align, how to stay properly in my own lane. What is the reference? Okay, so in terms of looking in your own lane, Align, look at the video on staying centered in your lane, and as well look farther down the road, and that will help you to center the vehicle in the lane. And then finally, look for landmarks along the roadway that you can use to pilot the vehicle straight down the road. Other traffic is usually a good indication. Signs along the road, because you're usually along the edge of the road and those types of things. So those are some of the ways that you can stay in the lane for your positioning the vehicle in the center of the lane. Oh, laser games. Laser games. Now, just remind me, you're in Ontario, right? All the cars are going to be automatic. Unless you request a manual transmission or you're in Europe or somewhere else, they're all going to be automatic transmissions. They're not manual transmissions. You have to request something like that. Okay, King Zed. For regular stop sign, do you stop twice? No, you don't have to stop twice. However, saying that, and I'll leave the stop sign position video down here in the description after we get done in the live feed here, you have to stop at the correct stopping position at the beginning. Okay, I'll just stop and start again. There's 3 stopping positions at a stop signed intersection: before the stop line, before the sidewalk, before the crosswalk. If there isn't a crosswalk and there is a sidewalk, just imaginary lines coming out into the roadway, you're going to stop before the sidewalk. And then finally, if there isn't a crosswalk and there isn't a stop line, where the 2 roads meet, so the edge of the 2 roads. So that's where you got to stop for the correct stopping position. If you stop behind the stop line and you can't see the traffic in the intersection, then you need to move forward and treat the intersection as a yield, because you can't see, so you obviously have to move forward so that you can see. So that's how you stop at a stop sign intersection. So technically you might have to stop twice, because you need to move forward where you can see after you've already stopped at the correct stopping position. So that's how you do that. Gavin, if I'm making a left turn and the only oncoming car is making a right turn, can I turn, or do I have to wait for the other car to finish their turn? Are you talking, Gavin, are you talking about a multi-lane roadway where you're making a left-hand turn? Is that what you're talking about? Nate, any tips for turning left at a complex intersection? Yes. Tips for turning left at a complex intersection. Stop in the line of traffic and put your front wheels, when you're going into the intersection and you're preparing to make your left-hand turn, put the front steer tires on the front crosswalk line. And this will differ between different driving instructors, because some driving instructors believe that you need to get right up in the intersection so you can get as many vehicles through the intersection as possible. I don't advocate that. I put the front steer tires on the front crosswalk line. That way you're committed to the intersection, but you're not in the intersection. And it's a very defensive move, because you're not going to get caught out if somebody runs the red light or whatnot. As well, you need to judge the gap at the intersection. And if you're there and the light turns yellow, you may have to go on the yellow light. If you're in Los Angeles or some other place, big place, you might actually even have to go on the red light. So know that. But do not go unless you are absolutely comfortable with the gap that is presented to you. And if you are going on the yellow light, make sure that the oncoming traffic is actually coming to a stop before you proceed through the intersection. If you do get caught out on a complex intersection on a red light, Know that you own the intersection and do not proceed until you are absolutely sure that the other traffic has stopped. So know that for the purposes of a road test when making a left-hand turn at a complex intersection. If you get caught out, you own the intersection. Take your time and go when it is safe to do so. Same thing for a four-way stop. Yes, King's Ed. Same thing for a four-way stop. What if the left lane is full? Fayez, I don't understand the question. Can you reword it and maybe clarify it a little bit for me, and then I'll try and answer it for you. Demo, thank you so much for that compliment. That's awesome. I'm so glad that the information is helping you to relax while you're driving and checking your blind spots, because for the purposes of a road test, observation is one of the key components of a road test, and being able to check your blind spots by shoulder checking and observing and getting your scanning pattern in place, all of that's going to be help you to be successful. ZP, is it true that if you're making a left turn in an intersection, only one person should be in the intersection at a time? ZP, yes, only, well, again, there's two schools of thinking in terms of left turns at a complex intersection. One of the schools of thought, which I do not advocate to, is that you get right out into the intersection and be prepared to turn left. My school of thinking, my thoughts on it, and which is a much more defensive move in terms of a left turn, is simply put your front steer tires on the front crosswalk line. That way you're committed to the intersection, but you're not in the intersection in case something goes wrong. So, especially for new drivers who are not skilled with judging the gap of oncoming traffic, who are not skilled with knowing if the oncoming traffic is in fact coming to a stop when they get into the intersection and start turning. So that is what I advocate that you do. So in terms of your left-hand turns, my thinking in terms of what you asked me in terms of the question, yes, only one vehicle at a time should be in the intersection in preparation for making a left-hand turn. Other driving instructors are going to say that you need to get 3 or 4 cars in the intersection so as many vehicles as possible can get through. The other thing that you need to know in terms of these large intersections, these complex intersections, is many of them are going to be fitted with a advanced green light, and if you're not comfortable with the gap and you don't want to go, simply wait for the next advanced green. So if you know that the light has been stale for a while and the traffic is going through and you're coming up to get into that turning lane, it's perfectly acceptable for you to wait for the next advanced green before you proceed through the intersection, because it's much safer to go through on a left-hand turn at the advanced green. All right, so just some information about all of that. Darcia, thinking about getting my license. Any tips? Yes. Go and write the test and get in a vehicle and start practicing driving as soon as possible, because the more practice you get driving a vehicle, the sooner you get started, the more comfortable you're going to be, and the less trepidation and fear and anxiety that you're going to have around driving, especially when you go to do the driving test. Because remember, when we do a road test, we do what we practice. And if you're scared, as we all do when we get tested, because there's nothing worse than somebody sitting in a seat 5 inches from you and who is criticizing what you're doing and commenting on what you're doing and watching what you're doing, because you're going to feel really nervous. So my suggestions in terms of getting your license is to start driving as soon as possible, even if it's just sitting in the vehicle and backing out of the driveway and backing into the driveway, going down to your local parking lot and those types of things. So I strongly encourage you to go get your learners and start driving as soon as possible. Gavin, does passing a yellow light fail you on a road test? Not necessarily. However, if you're in the intersection on the yellow light and the driving examiner can look up at that light and see the light go red, then yes, that is an automatic fail on a road test, because you've run a red light. So that's one of the failings on a yellow light as well. Make sure you have a look at the video here on yellow lights, because I talk about all this information, talk about the fact that no vehicle will stop in its own length, and that sometimes you'll need to proceed through the intersection, other times you're going to have to come to a stop. And the larger the vehicle, sometimes you're going to have to bring that vehicle to a fairly aggressive stop. So know that for the purposes of a road test. Slime Cool, what do you do if someone is trying to cross at the crosswalk? Do you have to yield or something, or can you just keep going? No, you have to yield to the pedestrian. You have to give the pedestrian the right of way. And remember, in terms of right of way, the right of way is always given. It is never taken. In other words, if you go plowing through an intersection thinking that you have the right of way and somebody else decides that they're going to go, they're just going to drive into you and have a crash. So it's better for you to give them the right of way, let them go and have their crash somewhere else. And that way you're going to have an incident-free day, because that's what you want. You want crash-free days. You don't want to be run into. So always give the right of way to other people if they insist on going in front of you. Okay? So know that as well. Emmy, no, there's not a limit on taking a road test. You can take the road test as many times as you want. And just keep studying, keep practicing, keep watching the videos here on the channel, and you'll be successful the next time. I'm sure you will. Laser Games, how long do I need to wait for the license? What do you, how do you mean, how long do I need to wait for the license? You mean after you pass your road test and it comes in the mail? Usually it comes in the mail in 6 to 8 weeks. So that's how long it should be. AT, any suggestions for passing the test? Which vehicle to get your license first time? Yes, AT, watch the pass your road test. It's the mock road test video here on the channel. I go right from A to Z in terms of showing up at the licensing center, what the examiner is going to say to you, how to do the road test, and those types of things, and that will give you information in terms of being successful on your road test. Now, first car, what I would suggest is just buy a 4-cylinder, buy an older car that has scratches and dings in it, because that way if you get a scratch in it, you're not going to be too worried about it. It's like my old car. If I get a scratch in it or somebody dings it or dents it or something like that, I'm not too fussed about it because it's an older car. You want something that's going to be reliable. Personally, I believe in Hondas and Toyotas. I think they're really durable, and you know, I have one that has 300,000 kilometers on it, 185,000 miles. So if you're obviously, most of you are going to be buying a secondhand vehicle, so I would advocate something like that to something like that that's going to be durable. And as well, when you buy a secondhand vehicle, take it to a mechanic and have them do an inspection on the vehicle before you purchase it. That way they can give you mechanical fitness of the vehicle. And if the person who you're buying it from or the dealership or whatnot won't let you take it to a mechanic to get an inspection done on it, then you don't want to buy that vehicle anyway. So make sure that you're doing that. Emmy, no worries at all. My pleasure to help you out and get you to be successful. Slime Cool, what could happen if you drive on a suspended license? If you get caught on a suspended license, the fine's going to be fairly heavy. I wouldn't recommend that you do it. So, yeah, I would not recommend that. As well, you don't have any insurance. If you get into a crash, it could be an expensive endeavor. As well, if you do get into a crash without insurance, there's a good chance that you could be sued with the lawyers, and then they'll hire me as a consultant to show negligence on your part. So I do not strongly recommend. I strongly recommend that you do not drive on a suspended license. So that's my information for you. All right, just looking through the comments here, we've had a good run here, and lots of good questions, lots of good comments as well. Make sure you have a look at everything else here on the channel. Lots of great information here on the channel. And again, if you have any questions about CDL stuff, and just again, head over to the Smart Drive Test website /checklists and pick up your driver's license checklist. All you have to do is put in your email and I'll send you the checklist, and that way you can go through that checklist before you head down for your road test, and you can make sure you got everything in place, you got your paperwork, you got your money, you got your prescription glasses, you've done a pre-trip inspection on the vehicle and those types of things, because you don't want to show up at the licensing center and be stressed and anxious for your road test, and then you forgot your glasses, or you're not wearing your contact lenses, or you don't have sunglasses for the purposes of your road test. So make sure that you go through that checklist, get that checklist. Okay, so just know that, and again, go to www.smartdrivetest.com/checklist and pick up your driver's license checklist, and that way you'll have that information. Okay, Nate, when can you drive friends after you get your license? Now, you are limited in terms, most places in North America and other countries in the world now have a GLP program, a graduated licensing program, that's going to limit the number of passengers you have in the vehicle. So after you get past the learner stage into the novice stage, usually you can have one passenger in the vehicle. And in some places, you're going to have to look up your local driving authority and see what restrictions you are. In some places, it's as limited as you can only have one passenger in the vehicle, and that passenger can be a sibling or a family member. So mom, dad, sister, brother, grandparents, and that's it. But look at your local licensing authority and figure out what the restrictions are on your license when you get into the novice phase of the GLP program. KDST, blackmail a male teacher for a license. There's no blackmailing, people. We've tried. It doesn't work. AT, thanks so much for the compliment. Not a problem, mate. Anything we can do to help you get a license. Okay, Gavin. Okay, last question I'm going to answer here in terms of emergency vehicles. Have a look at the video here on emergency vehicles, and again, I'll put that video down in the description for you. You have a look down there, look at that video on emergency vehicles. If an emergency vehicle comes on your road test, make sure you get over to the side of the road and stop, because if you don't stop, that is in fact an automatic fail on your road test, not stopping for an emergency vehicle. So make sure you do that. Now, no, you don't necessarily have to move to the right if you're driving on the right side of the road, or the left if you're moving on the left side of the road. Simply move to the closest shoulder for the purposes of the emergency vehicle and get the vehicle stopped. If you're at an intersection, you might have to turn the corner to get out of the way of the emergency vehicle. Or similar thing, if you're in a roundabout, you might actually have to go through the roundabout and exit on the other side and get over to the shoulder of the road to get out of the way of the emergency vehicles. Now, the other thing, just the last point on emergency vehicles, know that they travel in groups. So if the fire trucks are coming out, there's probably going to be an ambulance behind it, and there may be police vehicles as well, or other emergency vehicles. So know that they're going to travel in packs, okay? So that's the last question there in terms of emergency vehicles. Okay, so Sam's driving test on the 30th. I have a small crack on my windshield, but it doesn't pass to view of my hood, not in my field of vision. Cracks in windshield, Sam, I would strongly suggest that you take it to a licensing center and ask them before you show up for your road test, because you don't want to show up for your road test and have a crack in your windshield and then deny you taking your road test. So I would strongly suggest you go down and have a look at it. That way you can get it repaired or get another vehicle before you show up for your road test. All right. You can have 3 friends age 20 and under. I don't know about that, Nate. Okay. Depends where you are. All right, guys. Thanks so much for showing up for the live feed. And again, the next live feed will be on Sunday, Smart Sunday. So we're going to answer more questions. I'll have a presentation for you. Again, go over to the Smart Drive Test website and get your checklist for showing up for your driver's license. It's www.smartdrivetest.com/checklist. Sign up for that, get your checklist, and that way you'll be less anxious, less nervous on that as well for the purposes of your road test. So thanks very much for showing up. Good luck on your road test. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great day. Bye now.